The snow falls in thick curtains across the highway, each flake catching the red and blue lights of the patrol car. Officer Jake Morrison grips the steering wheel tighter, his eyes scanning the white darkness beyond the windshield. The wipers work overtime, scraping ice crystals from the glass with each labored pass. Through the crystalline chaos, the familiar landscape of Alaska's interior has become foreign, hostile. In the back seat, a massive German shepherd lifts his head, ears pricking forward. Thor's brown eyes reflect the dashboard lights, alert and focused despite the late hour. At nearly 90 pounds of muscle and determination, the dog has been Jake's partner for 4 years. 4 years of searches through brutal terrain, of tracking fugitives across frozen rivers, of finding lost hikers before the wilderness could claim them. In that time, the dog has never been wrong. Not once. Jake can feel the temperature dropping even through the truck's heater. The digital display reads -18 and falling. Outside, the wind drives the snow sideways, creating whiteout conditions that turn the world into a wall of white. These are the kind of nights when people die, when the cold doesn't just bite, it consumes. The radio crackles. Static hisses through the speakers, cutting in and out like a heartbeat. Then a voice breaks through, urgent and sharp. All units, we have a missing child. 7-year-old girl, last seen at the Riverside Cabins off mile 42. Family says she wandered from the property approximately 16 hours ago. Jake's stomach drops. 16 hours. In this weather, that's a death sentence. He reaches for the radio. Unit 7 responding. I have K9 Thor. We're 10 minutes out. The voice on the radio wavers. Officer Morrison. Temperature is -20. Wind chill puts it at -40. The storm is getting worse. Jake doesn't respond. He presses the accelerator, feeling the tires grip and slip on the ice-packed road. The engine roars its protest against the storm, but the vehicle pushes forward. In the back, Thor shifts his weight, moving to brace himself against the turn. A low whine escapes his throat, barely audible over the wind. The dog knows. He always knows when someone needs them. Jake's mind races through the possibilities, each one worse than the last. 16 hours in this weather. A child. The odds are already stacked impossibly high against them, but he's learned not to think about the statistics, the cold calculations of survival times and body temperatures. He thinks instead about Thor's incredible nose, about the bond they share, about the lives they've saved together when everyone else had given up hope. The Riverside Cabins emerge from the storm like ghosts, small structures huddled against the wind that screams down from the Brooks Range. Jake pulls into the gravel lot where 3 other patrol cars sit, their lights painting the snow in shades of red and blue. Even here, in the relative shelter of the buildings, the wind is strong enough to rock the truck on its suspension. A woman runs toward him before he can even open his door. Her face is raw from crying, her eyes red-rimmed and wild. Her coat is buttoned wrong, one side higher than the other, and she's not wearing gloves despite the deadly cold. Her hands are pale, fingers trembling. She slams her palms against Jake's window, her mouth moving, words lost in the wind. Jake opens the door, the cold hitting him like a punch. The woman grabs his arm, her fingers digging in with desperate strength. Please. Please, you have to find her. Her name is Emma. She's 7 years old and she's blind. She doesn't know where she is. She can't see. The words tumble out in a rush, each one more desperate than the last. Jake feels them hit him like a physical blow. Blind. A blind child, alone in the Alaskan wilderness for 16 hours. His stomach turns to ice. He opens the back door and Thor leaps out, his black and tan coat already dusted with snow. The dog stands at attention, muscles coiled, waiting for the command that will release him into action. Ma'am, I need something with her scent. A pillowcase, a shirt, anything she wore recently. The woman, Emma's mother. Sarah nods frantically and rushes back toward the cabin. Jake turns to the other officers, 3 men from the Fairbanks division. Their faces are grim. We've searched a half-mile radius. Nothing. The senior officer, a man named Patterson, shakes his head. Visibility is maybe 15 feet. We're losing daylight in 2 hours. Thor presses against Jake's leg, the dog's breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. Jake runs his gloved hand over Thor's head, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders. They've done this before. Found lost hikers, tracked escaped prisoners, located missing persons in conditions that would break most people. But never a blind child. Never someone so small, so vulnerable. Sarah returns with a small purple jacket, clutching it to her chest before forcing herself to hand it over. She wore this yesterday, before she went outside. Jake kneels in the snow, bringing the jacket to Thor's nose. The dog inhales deeply, his nostrils flaring as he processes the scent. Jake watches Thor's eyes change, the way they always do when he locks onto something. The dog's entire body goes still, focused. Thor. Find. The German Shepherd explodes into motion, his nose to the ground, moving in tight circles near the cabin's back porch. The other officers watch, their flashlights cutting through the falling snow. Thor's tail straightens, his body language shifting from searching to tracking. He's got it. Jake's voice cuts through the wind. Everyone falls silent. Thor moves away from the cabin, heading toward a line of spruce trees that mark the edge of the property. His pace is steady, methodical, nose skimming the surface of the snow. Each breath sends up small clouds of white powder. The dog's ears swivel constantly, processing sounds beyond human hearing. Jake follows, his boots crunching through the 6-inch accumulation that's deepening by the minute. The storm swallows them within seconds, the cabin lights fading to nothing behind a wall of white. The temperature seems to drop with each step away from civilization. Jake's face goes numb, despite his balaclava, the exposed skin around his eyes burning with cold. His breath freezes on his scarf, creating a rim of ice that scratches against his chin. The world narrows to the small circle of his flashlight beam and Thor's dark shape moving just ahead. He thinks about Emma. 7 years old, unable to see, wandering into this frozen hell. How terrified must she have been? How far could she have gone before the cold overwhelmed her? What made her leave the safety of the cabin? The questions circle in his mind, like the snow circles in the wind, endless and without answers. Thor stops suddenly, his head lifting. Snow coats his muzzle and ears, giving him the appearance of an ancient creature emerging from winter itself. He barks once, sharp and commanding, the sound cutting through the wind like a knife. Jake moves forward, his flashlight beam revealing what Thor has found. Footprints, small ones, child-sized, already half-filled with fresh snow. The prints are irregular, weaving drunkenly between trees with the random pattern of someone lost and confused. Someone who couldn't see where they were going. Good boy. Good boy, Thor. Thor surges forward, following the trail with renewed intensity. The footprints become harder to see as the storm intensifies, but Thor doesn't need them. He has her scent now, locked in his incredible nose. The dog can smell the unique combination of skin cells and oils that make Emma distinct from every other human on Earth. They push through the forest for 20 minutes, the wind howling through the spruce branches. Ice crystals form in Jake's eyelashes. He wipes them away with his glove, keeping his flashlight trained on Thor's dark shape ahead. Then Thor stops again, this time at the edge of a small clearing. The snow here is deeper, undisturbed except for one set of small tracks that lead from the tree line to the center. In the center stands a broken-down stayhouse, an old trapper's shelter that hasn't been used in decades. The structure leans like a drunk against the wind, its walls weathered gray and split with age. The roof has partially collapsed on one side, exposing black beams like ribs. One wall leans inward at a dangerous angle, and the door hangs open on twisted hinges, banging in the wind with a hollow sound that echoes across the clearing. Thor's bark changes. It becomes urgent, insistent, higher-pitched, the sound he makes when he's certain, when he's found what he was looking for. His body vibrates with energy despite the long search, despite the cold that would have broken lesser dogs. Jake's heart hammers against his ribs hard enough to hurt. He keys his radio with fingers gone clumsy in the cold. I have a possible location. Old stayhouse, approximately 1 mile northeast of the cabins. Send backup immediately. Static answers him. The radio is dying in the cold, its batteries failing, its signal lost in the storm. Jake shakes it, tries again. Nothing but the hiss of emptiness. They're on their own. Thor doesn't wait for permission. The dog pushes through the broken door, disappearing into the darkness of the shelter. Snow swirls in after him, and Jake follows, his flashlight beam sweeping across rotting floorboards and exposed beams. The structure groans around them, protesting the wind. It smells of decay and abandonment, of wet wood and animal nests. And there, huddled in the far corner beneath what remains of the roof, is a small shape wrapped in a pink winter coat. Emma. Jake's breath catches in his throat. She's curled into a ball so tight she looks even smaller than her 7 years, her arms wrapped around her knees, her face buried against her chest. Snow has drifted through the broken roof, coating her hood and shoulders in a white blanket. She's shivering so violently that her whole body shakes, the tremors visible even in the high, dim light. Her mittens are soaked through, dark with moisture that will freeze solid if she stays out here much longer. Thor approaches slowly now, his movements gentle and careful, all the urgency replaced with something tender. He's trained for this, trained to recognize when someone needs comfort instead of commands, when the search is over and the real work begins. The dog lies down beside Emma, pressing his warm body against her side. Steam rises from his thick coat, visible in the cold air. Emma's head lifts slightly. Her eyes, unfocused and clouded with blindness, stare past Thor toward some point in the darkness only she can perceive. "Who's there?" Her voice is so small, so fragile. Jake's throat tightens. "It's okay, sweetheart. My name is Jake. I'm a police officer. I came to take you home." Emma's hands, encased in soaked mittens, reach out blindly. They find Thor's fur and she gasps, her fingers digging into the dog's thick coat. It's warm. She whispers the words like a prayer. "That's Thor. He's my partner. He's the one who found you." Jake kneels beside them, quickly assessing Emma's condition. Her lips have a blue tinge, her shivering is extreme, bordering on the convulsive stage of hypothermia. Her pink coat is wet, which means she's been losing heat at an accelerated rate for hours. He needs to get her dry and warm, needs to stop the heat loss before her core temperature drops any further. Jake shrugs off his heavy winter parka, wrapping it around Emma's shoulders over her wet coat. She doesn't resist, doesn't pull away. Her hands remain buried in Thor's fur, holding on to the dog like he's the only real thing in the world. "Emma, can you tell me if anything hurts? I can't see." Her voice breaks. "I got lost and I can't see." "I know, sweetheart. But you're safe now. Thor found you, and we're going to get you home to your mom." Mommy was sleeping. I heard something outside. It sounded like singing. Jake's chest constricts, a blind child following sounds into the wilderness. The wind through the trees, the creaking of frozen branches, all of it might have seemed like voices calling her forward. Thor shifts, pressing closer to Emma. The dog's body heat is crucial right now, warming her while Jake works to radio for help. But when he brings the radio to his lips, nothing but static answers. They're too far out, the storm too intense. He's on his own. Jake makes a decision. He gathers Emma into his arms, her small body weighing almost nothing. She doesn't let go of Thor, her mittened hands tangled in his fur, so the dog stands and moves with them, staying pressed against Emma's side. "We're going back to the cabin, Emma. It's going to be okay." But even as he says the words, Jake knows the truth. Emma's core temperature has dropped dangerously low. Her shivering is starting to slow, which means her body is giving up the fight to generate heat. She needs medical attention now. Not in an hour when they make it back through the storm. Thor leads the way through the darkness, his nose guiding them back along the trail they followed. Jake follows, carrying Emma, feeling her small breaths against his chest. She's stopped talking, stopped asking questions. Her body has gone limp in his arms. "Keep fighting, Emma. Stay with me." The forest seems endless, the storm a wall of white that threatens to swallow them whole. Jake's arms ache from Emma's weight, his legs burning from the effort of pushing through deepening snow. But Thor never wavers, never hesitates. The dog moves with absolute certainty, following the scent trail back toward safety. After what feels like hours but is probably only 30 minutes, lights appear through the trees. The cabin, civilization, safety. Jake stumbles forward, his legs burning from the effort, his arms aching from Emma's weight. Thor barks to alert the others, the sound carrying through the storm like a bell. Sarah appears first, bursting through the cabin door. Her scream of relief cuts through the wind, raw and primal. "Emma. Oh God, Emma, my baby, get inside." Jake's voice is harsh, commanding, sharper than he intends. She needs heat. Now. We don't have time. They rush into the cabin, the warmth hitting Jake like a wall, so intense after the cold that it feels almost painful. His cheeks burn as feeling returns to his frozen skin. Patterson is there, along with a paramedic named Chen, who had just arrived in his own four-wheel drive. Chen's medical bag is already open on the kitchen table. They take Emma from Jake's arms with practiced efficiency, laying her on the couch, their movements quick but controlled. Chen cuts away Emma's wet outer layers with scissors, exposing her pale skin. Her lips have a distinct blue tinge. Her fingernails are gray. The shivering has slowed to occasional tremors, which Chen immediately recognizes as a bad sign. When the body stops fighting, stops trying to generate heat, the end is near. Thor shakes the snow from his coat, sending a spray of white across the hardwood floor. He doesn't move to rest by the fire. Instead, he positions himself beside the couch, lying down where Emma can feel him if she reaches out. The dog's eyes never leave the small girl, watching, waiting, refusing to abandon his post. Chen checks Emma's vitals, his face grave in the lamplight. Core temp is 87 degrees. She's moderately hypothermic, trending toward severe. We need to warm her gradually. If we do it too fast, if we're not careful, we risk cardiac arrest. Her heart could stop. Sarah sobs, kneeling beside her daughter, her hands hovering over Emma but not quite touching, afraid that even her touch might cause harm. "Baby, please be okay. Mommy's here. You're safe now." Jake stands back, watching Chen work. The paramedic's hands are steady as he wraps Emma in thermal blankets, the kind designed specifically for hypothermia victims. He places chemical heat packs against her neck, her armpits, her groin, the areas where major blood vessels run close to the surface. An IV line goes into her arm, delivering warmed fluids directly into her bloodstream. Every movement is careful, controlled, calculated to bring her back from the edge without pushing her over it. Thor remains at Emma's side, his presence a quiet constant in the chaos. The dog's breathing is slow and steady, his warmth a supplement to the medical interventions. Minutes tick by. Emma's shivering returns, which Chen says is a good sign. Her body is fighting back, trying to generate heat. Her color improves from blue-tinged to pale pink. Her breathing deepens. After 20 minutes, Emma's eyes flutter open. She turns her head, her unfocused gaze searching. "Where's the warm thing?" Sarah looks confused, but Jake understands. "Thor." "He's right here, Emma, right beside you." Emma's hand slides out from under the blankets, reaching blindly. Thor shifts, bringing his head closer until Emma's fingers find his muzzle. A small smile touches her lips. "He found me." She whispers it like a secret. "I was so scared and so cold." And then he was there. I could feel him breathing. I could smell him. Sarah looks at Thor, then at Jake, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you for bringing my baby home." Chen continues monitoring Emma's vitals as they wait for the medevac helicopter. The storm is beginning to break, and within the hour, they'll be able to transport Emma to Fairbanks Memorial Hospital for observation. Jake sits beside Thor, running his hand through the dog's thick fur. The German shepherd leans into the touch, content now that his job is complete. He found the lost girl. He kept her warm. He brought her home. Patterson approaches, shaking his head in wonder. 16 hours in -20 weather. She shouldn't have survived. Jake looks at Thor, then at Emma, who still has her hand resting on the dog's head. She didn't survive alone. The helicopter arrives as the first hints of dawn touch the eastern sky. The paramedics load Emma onto a stretcher, but before they can wheel her out, she reaches for Thor again. "Will he visit me?" Jake kneels beside the stretcher, meeting Emma's unseeing eyes. "He'll visit you. I promise." Sarah takes Jake's hand, squeezing it hard. "How can I ever thank you?" "Thank Thor. He's the one who wouldn't give up." The helicopter lifts off, its blades churning the snow into a white whirlwind. Jake and Thor stand in the clearing, watching it disappear into the breaking storm. "Come on, partner. Let's go home." But 3 days later, Jake finds himself pulling into the parking lot of Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, Thor beside him in the passenger seat. They'd received a call that morning from Sarah, asking if they would visit Emma. The hospital's pediatric wing is bright and warm, the walls painted with cheerful murals of animals and forests. The floors shine with fresh wax, and the air smells of disinfectant and flowers. A nurse leads them through the corridors, past rooms where other children recover from their own battles. Some of the doors are open, revealing kids with broken bones, with bandages, with parents sitting vigil beside their beds. But Jake and Thor draw attention wherever they go. Nurses stop to watch them pass. Other patients peer out from their rooms. Everyone has heard the story by now. The blind girl lost in the blizzard. The police dog who found her after 16 hours. The miracle rescue. The nurse stops at room 304 and knocks gently before pushing the door open. Inside, Sarah sits beside Emma's bed, reading a book in Braille while Emma listens, her small face peaceful in a way it wasn't 3 days ago. The room is filled with flowers, balloons, stuffed animals sent by well-wishers from across Alaska who'd heard the story on the news. Emma's head turns the moment they enter, her unseeing eyes tracking toward the sound. "Is that Thor?" I can smell him. He smells like outside, like trees. Her voice is stronger now, the weakness gone. Color has returned to her cheeks. The blue tinge that haunted Jake's nightmares has been replaced by healthy pink. She looks like a normal 7-year-old girl, not someone who came within minutes of freezing to death. Thor moves to the bedside without being told, navigating around the medical equipment with practiced ease. He rests his head on the mattress, his tail wagging slowly. Emma's hands immediately find his ears, her fingers moving with the careful deliberation of someone who sees through touch. He's so soft. I've never felt anything like him before. My fingers can feel every hair. Jake watches as Emma explores Thor's face with her hands, her fingers tracing the shape of his muzzle, his eyes, his ears. For a blind child, touch is everything. It's how she builds her mental picture of the world, how she understands what things are. And Thor stands perfectly still, allowing her to learn him through her fingers, his patience infinite. The doctor said I was very lucky. Emma's voice is thoughtful, serious beyond her years. She said most people don't last that long in the cold. She said my core temperature was very low. That means the inside of me was too cold. You're a fighter, Emma. A real survivor. No. Emma shakes her head, her hands still stroking Thor's fur, her fingers finding the places where the undercoat is thickest. Thor is the fighter. He came through the storm to find me. I heard him barking, and then he was there, and he was so warm. I held on to him, and I knew I would be okay. I knew he wouldn't leave me. Sarah wipes tears from her eyes with a tissue that's already damp from earlier crying. The doctor told me the details. If she had been out there another hour, maybe even 30 minutes, we would have lost her. Her core temperature was 87 degrees when you brought her in. At 85, people start to lose consciousness. At 82, the heart can just stop beating. Jake feels the weight of those words. The razor-thin margin between life and death. 30 minutes. The difference between Thor finding Emma when he did and finding her too late was measured in minutes. He looks at Thor, the dog who refused to quit, who pushed through a blizzard to find a lost child, who gave his warmth to a shivering girl and stayed with her until help arrived. Emma's mother says you have a very special dog. Jake's voice is thick with emotion he doesn't bother to hide. He is special. Jake reaches down, scratching Thor behind the ears in the spot that makes the dog's back leg twitch. He's saved a lot of people over the years, but you might be his most important rescue, Emma. You're definitely mine. Emma's smile is radiant. Can I see him again, after I go home? Jake exchanges a look with Sarah, who nods. Of course, we'll bring him by whenever you want. They stay for an hour, Emma petting Thor and telling him about her room at home, her stuffed animals, her favorite Braille books. Thor listens with perfect patience, his tail wagging slowly. When it's time to leave, Emma hugs Thor around the neck, burying her face in his fur. Thank you for finding me. Thor licks her cheek once, gentle and careful. As Jake and Thor walk back through the hospital corridors, a nurse stops them. That's the dog who found her, isn't it? We heard about it. 16 hours in a blizzard. Jake nods, pride warming his chest. That's him. He's a hero. Jake looks down at Thor, the German shepherd walking calmly at his side, unaware of the attention, unconcerned with praise. To Thor, it was just another day of work. Just another person who needed to be found. But Jake knows better. He knows that without Thor, Emma would have died alone in that broken stayhouse, her small body surrendering to the cold. He knows that Thor's incredible nose, his relentless determination, his warmth and presence saved a little girl's life. They walk out into the parking lot where fresh snow has begun to fall, light and gentle this time. Thor pauses, lifting his nose to the wind, testing the air. What do you smell, partner? Thor looks up at Jake, his brown eyes bright and alert. The look that says he's ready. Ready for the next call, the next search, the next person who needs to be found. Jake opens the truck door and Thor jumps in, settling into his seat. As they drive away from the hospital, Jake thinks about Emma's hands in Thor's fur, her smile when she realized she was safe, the fierce hug she gave the dog who saved her life. "You did good, Thor. Real good." Thor's tail thumps against the seat. Outside, the snow continues to fall, soft and steady, covering the world in white. But somewhere in Fairbanks, a 7-year-old blind girl is warm and safe, dreaming of the dog who found her in the darkness. And somewhere in the wilderness beyond the city, the old broken stayhouse stands empty once again, its walls holding the memory of a miracle. The miracle of a German shepherd who wouldn't give up, who pushed through a blizzard, who gave his warmth to a shivering child and stayed with her until help arrived. The radio crackles as they drive, dispatch calling with another case. But for now, in this moment, Jake lets himself feel the weight of gratitude. Gratitude for Thor, for the bond they share, for the life they saved together. He reaches over and scratches Thor's head. The dog leans into the touch, content. Outside, the Alaskan wilderness stretches in all directions, vast and unforgiving. But Jake knows that somewhere in that frozen landscape, if someone is lost and scared and running out of time, Thor will find them. He always does. 2 weeks later, Jake receives a package at the station. Inside is a drawing, made with raised lines that a blind child can feel with her fingers. It shows a stick figure girl holding the paw of a large dog. At the top, written in Braille and translated into print by Sarah, are the words, "Thor is my hero." Jake pins it to the bulletin board in the K9 office. Other officers stop to look at it, asking about the story. Jake tells them about the 16-hour search, the broken stayhouse, the shivering girl who held on to Thor like he was her lifeline. Because he was. That evening, Jake takes Thor to the park for their usual training session. But as they work through the drills, practicing scent detection and tracking, Jake's mind keeps returning to Emma. To the way she smiled when she touched Thor's face, the way her hands explored his features with such wonder and trust. A month passes. Then 2. Winter gives way to spring, the snow melting to reveal the muddy earth beneath. Jake and Thor continue their work, responding to calls, finding missing persons, tracking suspects. But every few weeks, they visit Emma. She's back home now, attending a special school for blind children, learning Braille and mobility skills. But her favorite days are the ones when Jake and Thor come to visit. On a bright April afternoon, Jake pulls up to Emma's house, Thor bouncing excitedly in the back seat. The dog knows this place now, recognizes the smells, the sounds. Emma is waiting on the front porch, her mother beside her. When she hears Thor's paws on the gravel driveway, she jumps up, her hands outstretched. Thor runs to her, his tail wagging so hard his whole body wiggles. Emma laughs, kneeling down to hug him, her fingers finding his familiar features. "I missed you." Thor licks her face, gentle as always. Sarah brings out lemonade and cookies, settling into a porch chair, while Emma sits on the steps with Thor's head in her lap. She tells Jake about school, about learning to read Braille, about her new cane that helps her navigate. "I'm learning to use my other senses better, like touch and hearing." Emma runs her hands through Thor's fur. "The teacher says blind people can learn to understand the world in different ways." Jake watches her, seeing the confidence that's grown in her since that terrible night. She's no longer the terrified child huddled in the stayhouse. She's a survivor, a fighter. Thor taught me that. Emma's voice is quiet, thoughtful. When I was lost, I couldn't see anything. But I could feel him. I could hear him breathing. I knew he was real, and that he wouldn't leave me. He wouldn't have. Jake's throat is tight. He would have stayed with you no matter what. I know. Emma smiles, pressing her cheek against Thor's head. That's what heroes do. As the afternoon sun stretches long across the yard, casting golden shadows through the budding trees. Jake sits on the porch steps, watching Emma and Thor together. The bond between them is something special, something that goes beyond the simple relationship between a child and a dog. It's forged in survival, in trust, in the moment when a terrified, blind girl reached out in the darkness and found warmth and safety in the form of a German shepherd who refused to give up. Thor saved Emma's life, yes. But Emma gave Thor something too. She gave him purpose beyond duty, meaning beyond training. She showed him that his work matters, that every search is someone's everything, that every person he finds is someone's whole world. Every life saved is a universe preserved. Sarah comes to sit beside Jake, her eyes on her daughter. I think about that night all the time. Every single night when I close my eyes, I see her little pink coat disappearing into the storm. What would have happened if you hadn't come, if Thor hadn't found her, if you'd been even 30 minutes later? Jake doesn't respond immediately. There's nothing to say to that. The what-ifs are too terrible to contemplate, too dark to voice aloud. Instead, he watches Emma laugh as Thor's tail wags hard enough to knock over a potted plant. She was only minutes away from dying. Sarah's voice breaks, the words catching in her throat. The doctor told me in detail what happens. When the core temperature drops below a certain point, the body just shuts down. The heart slows. The breathing becomes shallow. She would have fallen asleep and never woken up. My baby would have just gone to sleep in the snow. But she didn't. Jake turns to look at Sarah, his voice firm. Thor found her in time. That's what matters. She's here. She's healthy. She's laughing. Focus on that. He's welcome here anytime. Sarah wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. You both are. I mean that. Emma talks about Thor constantly. She tells everyone at school about the dog who saved her. He's helped her more than you know, more than I can put into words. How so? Sarah watches Emma for a long moment before answering, choosing her words carefully. She was so afraid after that night. Afraid of the dark, afraid of being alone, afraid of sounds she couldn't identify. She had nightmares about the cold, about being lost. But when she's with Thor, when she can touch him and feel him breathing beside her, she's not afraid anymore. He's her anchor to feeling safe again. He reminds her that help exists, that there are good things in the world, that she wasn't abandoned. The words settle over Jake like a blanket. An anchor. That's exactly what Thor is. Not just for Emma, but for all the people he's found over the years. The lost, the scared, the ones running out of time. Thor is the constant in the chaos, the certainty in the confusion. As the sun sets, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Jake and Thor prepare to leave. Emma hugs Thor one more time, whispering something in his ear that Jake can't hear. Thor's tail wags, his tongue lolling out in a happy dog smile. See you soon, partner. Emma waves in their general direction, not quite accurate, but close enough. See you soon, Emma. Driving home through the twilight, Jake thinks about heroism, about what it means to save a life, to give someone a second chance. The world calls Thor a hero, pins medals on his collar, writes articles about his rescue of a blind girl lost in an Alaskan blizzard. But to Thor, it was never about being a hero. It was about doing the job, following the scent, finding the lost, bringing them home. Jake reaches over and scratches Thor's head. The dog's eyes are already drooping, exhausted from an afternoon of play with Emma. You know you're her hero, right? Thor's tail thumps once against the seat. Mine too. Outside, the Alaskan landscape rolls past, mountains and forests and rivers carved from stone and ice. The same wilderness that nearly claimed Emma's life. The same wilderness that Thor conquered to save her. Somewhere in the distance, A radio crackles with a new call. Another missing person. Another search. Another chance for Thor to do what he was born to do. But for now, they drive through the quiet evening. Two partners who saved a life together, who gave a blind girl a second chance, who proved that sometimes the difference between life and death is a dog who refuses to give up. Thor shifts in his seat, his breathing deep and even. In his dreams, maybe he runs through snow, following a scent, finding a small girl who needs him. Or maybe he dreams of sunshine and scratches behind the ears, of Emma's laughter and her gentle hands exploring his face. Either way, Thor sleeps the sleep of the righteous, the sleep of a dog who knows his purpose and fulfills it without question or complaint. Jake drives on, the truck's headlights cutting through the gathering darkness. Above them, the first stars appear, cold and distant. But inside the truck, there is warmth. There is peace. There is the quiet satisfaction of a job well done and a life saved. And somewhere in Fairbanks, a 7-year-old blind girl sleeps safely in her bed, one hand clutching a stuffed dog that looks nothing like Thor, but represents everything he means to her. In her dreams, she runs through a forest where she can see, where the world is bright and clear and full of light. And beside her, always, runs a German shepherd with kind eyes and a warm coat, the dog who found her when she was lost, who saved her when she was dying, who taught her that even in the darkest moments, help is coming. You just have to hold on a little longer. The stars wheel overhead as Jake pulls into his driveway. He lets Thor out, watches the dog stretch and yawn. Tomorrow they'll be back on duty, ready for whatever comes. But tonight, Jake stands in his yard, looking up at the sky, thinking about miracles. About the miracle of a dog's nose that can track a scent through a blizzard. About the miracle of a child's will to survive. About the miracle of being in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Thor comes to stand beside him, pressing against Jake's leg. The dog looks up, his eyes reflecting the starlight. Good boy, Thor. Jake's voice is soft. You're a very good boy. Thor's tail wags once, twice, then he turns and trots toward the house, ready for dinner and rest and the comfort of home. Jake follows, leaving the wilderness and the stars and the memories behind. But he knows they'll return. Tomorrow, next week, whenever the radio crackles with news of someone lost and scared and running out of time. And when they do, Thor will be ready. He always is.